good, y'all? It's the Demouchets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys. All right, join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
If we're gonna minimize being a man to that particular anatomy,
we didn't minimize.
No. I'm asking the question. Okay, if we minimize it, because this is where we're going, is anatomy, right? Because that's where we've gotten.
Our basic biology. Okay, yeah.
So if we get there, so do your penises make you more men than us?
It's part of.
I don't think that's a question for them. I think that's a question for women. Because if this was a debate between women and trans,
that question
for a lot of us, it would be yes. Because
y'all been high-fiving.
There's a difference between wanting to be with a masculine energy.
That's how you do it. Yeah, that's how. This is what you say.
And being either bisexual or a lesbian, right? If they want that, they go for what they want. And if I want a man, I want a man.
Well said.
That wasn't well said.
Well said.
Because you know my thoughts be like,
constellations got to connect the stars. Huh?
For real.
Okay.
But still, like, seriously, if they wanted,
I'm trying not to dive in that though.
But that's not my story, so I can't really speak for everybody else. But
ooh, Lord, you keep sweating. I let's see. All right. The question was still being asked though.
Oh, okay.
So let's see what they say. Let's see what they say.
Not make it more or less. It's we're a biologically man. You're not a biological man.
It's not a spectrum, so it's not a question that we can answer, because you're saying on the spectrum, would this make us more of a man than you? But no, it's because we are a man and you guys aren't.
Well, we're different. So we're not men. We're different. Is exactly what you just said.
In my view, you guys are appropriating the gender and you are living as a man, but biologically you are not a man. So to me, it's not, you can't say, okay, well, does that make us more of a man? That's not even a question to ask, because you're not a biological man. When it comes down to asking questions that make me start to change what the truth is and what the truth isn't, putting it on a spectrum when it's an objective truth, that's where I draw the line.
What's the biggest problem with what he said? It doesn't make what you feel any different. The biological truth is the truth, and why can't that be the truth? And you also say, but I feel like on the inside that I'm a man and I'm going to present that way.
The argument is that people try to invalidate who we are with that. I'm not saying that you guys are doing that, but a lot of society in the world does that. Well, biologically, you're female. What hurts trans people that people don't realize what they're doing is it's very harmful. You got to be aware of what you're saying and what you're putting out there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, 100%. And that's why I think we all agree. We would never try to offend you or anything like that. To be honest, if I saw any one of you in the streets, I don't care. It's not going to bother me that you want to. Right. I would know unless I pulled your pants down or something. Right. Why do you feel like you have to present the way you do? You know, facial hair. Could you be a man without having facial hair?
I mean, yeah.
Because you feel like you're a man.
I'm in the early stages of testosterone. I haven't hit 1 year yet. But personally for me, you know, I crave, you know, having a full-on beard like these fine gentlemen and you guys are. Like, I crave it, you know, like. But I do believe, like, not having like this little small peach fuzz I have going on, it does make me feel more dysphoric. It makes me like feel like, oh, this is how I presented before transitioning.
Do you feel like it's something that has gone wrong at birth? Like, you know, you're born and you say, well, genetics and evolution says this. Why do I feel like this?
Yeah,
yet
I mean,
I
think questioning it was something that I always wondered, because sometimes when people say like, oh, like it was a choice, which I hear a lot on the other side all the time, like it was a choice. I was legit born this way. Like I could remember from, I think 4 or 5 years old, where like I didn't feel like a girl, you know what I mean? And I can't tell you why that happened. It was just my path in this life. And it's something that I honored. And, you know, it was really hard for me to continue living, especially when puberty hit. You know, like time of month comes in, obviously anatomy changes, like, and that was the biggest thing for me, where I knew that, like, okay, I can't do this. It's like you're not in your own home.
Children should be allowed to transition.
Well, I was gonna say I find it very interesting that you and I are the only ones that stepped up, especially since we're younger. And
You should allow children to feel what they feel because I felt the way that I felt for as long as I can remember, and it's something that I cannot deny.
yeah,
You know, although my mother is supportive, when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to wear boys' clothes because that wasn't right. Now I know we're talking about transitioning. It doesn't always have to be hormones. It's like transitioning in society, so being able to dress more masculine.
Yeah.
I did when I was younger, but as I got into middle school, kids change, people are mean, so you
Yeah.
know, I dressed how I would in society, so I dressed like a girl, whatever, but I think that children should be allowed to express themselves in whatever way makes them feel comfortable.
yeah. Kids are struggling to be who they are, and there's more rates of suicide for trans individuals because they're like there's literally being laws put in place to prevent them from being who they are, and that's not right. That's not right.
Being parents of 3 children,
All right, all right,
who
all right.
are school-age children who have been around other children who are in the transition process has been very stressful because we have to explain a lot of things that are new in this society. A lot of, when I say new, things that have just now been brought to the forefront
Yeah.
in society with the changes of bathrooms and things like that has been very stressful.
Yeah.
I am a parent to 3 children. I'm not a parent to nobody else's children. But when things are presented at such a young age, I'm explaining to my 5-year-old that he has to be nice and play with everybody. And he's asking us questions.
But he has questions though.
We
Yeah.
haven't. It's.
I mean, coming up when I was a big pup, I didn't have those questions.
right.
I didn't have those concerns. So I
Right.
never thought to do it. I never thought to be it. I never felt to be it.
Mm-hmm.
So having children, now that the world is more displayable, you know what I'm saying?
It's stressful.
It's like it's like if we in a store and they come across in their visual sighting that they see someone, but they know they know who they are, but they see someone, they would stop and ask questions. They wouldn't be disrespectful.
Right. They genuinely want to
They
know.
want to know
Curiosity.
what's going on,
Right.
and we have to tell them the truth.
Right. We're forced as a society, we're forced to have conversations more earlier than conversations
we
were
are.
had with us.
Yeah, 100%.
Like the birds and the bees.
Yep,
Like we're forced to have these conversations before we're ready to have these conversations with our children. And especially living in America where we have to teach them safe words because our society is just crazy people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Phones stay buzzing.
it's stressful. It is, and that's why I'm gonna leave it at. I'm not nobody else's parent. I'm my children's parent.
Yeah, and I think it just starts in the home, bro. Like, things are taught. Things are taught. You allow your child to see certain things for too long, they adopt it. That's simple. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and
So, you
that
allow them to
is
hear
where-
conversations,
yeah.
they adopt it. You allow them to hear certain words, they're going to adopt it. So, at the end of the day, it's not necessarily saying, oh, I don't want my child to be, listening to this or hearing this type of stuff or seeing this type of stuff. It's educating them early on. Cause I was coming, I ain't have to get educated early on, but now
about this, like that's
they have to
what
get educated early
the
on.
ant pile theory come back. Okay,
There you go. Yeah.
You can have as many ant piles in your yard, but once it starts seeping into other people's yards, that's where it become a problem.
And now the parents are forced. It's like you're forcing their hand basically to
Yeah.
say what's going on and how things are going today. And it's history. You know what I'm saying? Because even on our channel, we speak about slavery a lot, and we have to acknowledge history and let them know at one point they dealt with this, and things have changed. And now we're in a time where it's like at one point I didn't have those type of questions or worries, but things have changed.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's always going to be an unfolding event that is being displayed to the world, words that people are going to adopt, and things that people are going to try to say that's normal.
Right.
You know.
Right. And I mean, it may be normal to you, but you can't change everybody's beliefs.
Yeah.
You know, so that is where we stand on that.
Was this one about the schools?
Children.
Oh, children?
Should children transition?
Should children transition?
And speaking on like choices you make when you're children, there's a lot of things, a lot of choices I made, a lot of things I've said when I was a child that I look back on and I'm like, oh, why I said that, why I did that, why I dressed like that.
Wow, I hate to look at my MySpace page.
Right.
Boy, I was like.
And so to have them go through something that's like that's a big
Like, and then they're
decision.
young and they want to choose that at a young age. It's like, are you like?
That's a big decision.
Mm,
That's a big decision.
Okay, so I work with children. This is where I have like the biggest problem with the trans stuff is with the children because people, like I'm sure you guys would agree, you want to inject them with the hormones to stop their puberty, their normal puberty. They haven't even developed the prefrontal cortex yet, and you want to stop their natural puberty from occurring to affirm their gender, and then later on they regret it. I think that's not a good thing.
See, that's why this is a loaded question, because transition can mean many things for children. Now, I totally, as a transsexual person, disagree with giving children hormone blockers, medication, surgery, but what I do agree with is socially transitioning, which means why, because I did that, okay, and I did that in the 60s and 70s. My parents dressed me like Buck, I was a boy, you know, I didn't have any problems because I just lived, we used to call it a tomboy, right? So that was totally, and I went through puberty and I did all the things.
It's still a tomboy. She's still a tomboy. She's still a girl, but she's a tomboy because she's in the hood with the boys. She's growing up with she had, like I said earlier, the only sister with all the brothers. So she's naturally seeing how hard it is to be a guy. You know what I'm saying? Not hard as in it's challenging, hard as in the stuff that we do. We wrestle, we jump off of stuff, we fight. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be sneaky. And she's like, yeah, my brothers was... And I had some time when I had to be in that position too. So I had to adopt.
Yeah, but then there's girls who are the only girl in the household of boys who's the girliest.
True,
you know?
true.
So when it comes to expressing yourself, yes, allow children to express themselves. Like he said, his parents dressed him up as Buck when he was younger.
I think that's on the
There's
parent.
different ways to allow children to express themselves, but again, that's a big decision.
Yeah.
Do not believe children can make those choices, and I do not believe it's okay and ethical for a parent to make those choices for a child. But I do believe gender dysphoria exists in children. I had it, 100% it's there. But to give medication to a child is so unethical to me that you would actually, you're exactly what you said, you're stunting brain growth, you're stunting all of these things. They don't have enough research on it. So I'm in agreement with transitioning medically for children is not okay for me, but I do believe in a social space.
When you say a social transition, it's interesting to me because we can't control what happens in a social situation.
That's right.
So to me, and we talk about suicide rates among young trans people, this whole ideology is telling people to derive their value off of what somebody else is saying about them or what somebody else affirms to them. So we say that, you know, society is the problem and we're not allowing people to be who they are and that's why they're committing suicide, but maybe it has to do with the messaging that we're sending to these kids, that you derive your value from if somebody uses your correct pronoun, or you derive your value if this person accepts you for wearing a dress. Be who you are, but tell them to be empowered about it and not get that empowerment from somebody else.
I feel like that's really kind of inconsiderate to say that someone would take their life because what someone else says. To somebody, that is important. To somebody, I know, have friends who their family does not use the correct pronouns when they've transitioned and they live in the same household. This person struggles with depression and anxiety. Could you imagine living in an environment like that where you're no longer validated? That's coming from your own parents.
But if you base your validation off of other people, this is a hard truth, but if your sole validation
No, you definitely have to do it. Listen, I
could
could give
people,
a shit what everyone thinks about me. I do what I want. But for everyone, that's not the case because everybody has different personalities.
Right, but that doesn't make it that doesn't mean that
but it's still,
we should
but
be
what you're not
telling people to get
listen, what you're not
validation from
acknowledging though
others.
is that in that environment it is not supported.
I'm acknowledging that. I'm
Okay.
just saying that we're saying that for some reason they should look for that validation from somebody
When
else
you
rather
love
than find it
somebody and you have a
within.
family, you want them to
But you're
validate you.
focusing not on the individual, you're focusing on the people outside of that
Yeah, but the
individual. I'm focusing on empowering.
All right, y'all. Okay. All
That's
right.
an interesting
No,
topic because
basically.
he's a gay man and that's a trans man,
Mm-hmm.
and they both had to come out to their parents
But do we
and
ever?
family.
Yeah, but do they ever stop to consider the challenge of the parent when they are introduced to this new reality that their child no longer wants to be who they gave birth to?
Right. Right.
That's the question. I understand about depression and everything. Yes, if your loved ones, your parents, the people that brought you into this world are now not showing you the ultimate love that you're supposed to receive, and you're growing in that house, depression is going to hit. Suicide is going to hit. Oh, wow, my people don't love me? Oh, nobody love me.
Right.
But then on the other hand, it's like he's telling them that, what if that individual goes seek that love from someone else or seek it in another way that, that person can feel validated again? Then that person may not have to deal with depression. But being in the middle guy that they're talking about, this individual person, when that person stopped and sit back and said, what about what they did, what my parents thought about when I told them this?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be respectful enough to know that they're going to be challenged with this new thing, this theory, this new act that you're going to be displaying as they're watching you develop. That is hard as heck for the parent.
Yeah, because I mean,
Well, mama held you, baby. She said, it's a girl. Oh,
right.
Lord, thank you.
And how
then,
happy.
and now all that happiness is shattered because now she has to stop. And she's questioning herself, for one. She's most likely going to question God. She most likely not going to understand. She's going to be hard for her to express it to her friends. So she has to come into a new realization that her baby is no longer who she gave birth to.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
And for some parents, it's easier than others.
And it is true. That is true.
Especially when, when you add in family values, family morals, family spirituality. Yeah, look.
But then you got some parents that's going to sit back and say, that's my baby. I gave birth to that baby.
Yeah.
And regardless of what that child do, that child is in jail, I'm going to support my baby.
Right.
If that child is on a trip across the country and I never seen them in years, I'm going to still support my baby. If that child want to transition and start going through these flaws and these new things about himself or herself, so I'm going to support my baby. It's like they have parents like that that's going to drop all they doing and have a complete understanding that there's something going on and they want to be there regardless. And it's going to be hard.
Right.
But at the end of the day, that child may not see how much trauma that mama or that daddy may go through, but they know that that child have their support, and that's probably all the child would need at that point.
Right, but that's still hard because at the end of the day, that's just like let's say a child wanting to get a tattoo, or a child wanting to fly to another country, or a child, I don't know, something. A child. The point I'm trying to get across is children are children. Children are children. Let children be children. As adults, we know there are some things we can look back on when we were younger. Heck, just 2 years ago, and we may be like, "Oh man, I should have did this better. I should have did this way." Children are children.
Yeah. Unless it's like a chain reaction of generation, and then it comes into the house again. It's like, oh yeah, I was just like you. Right. At one point, I understand. You know what I'm saying? But it's still new to society in a way. Yeah, in a way.
They could handle it how Buck's parents handled it if that's what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But as in transitioning, that's a big decision.
Yeah.
But part of being a person is needing to be validated. You don't need to be validated ever in your life from your family or your friends.
I get my validation from within, and then the
right. But if we're talking about children, okay, if we're talking, okay, I was an 8-year-old when I found out that I wasn't biologically male, right? I was 8 when I found out that I wasn't the same as my brothers. Okay, and so going through that process, I attempted suicide 4 times because my mother was like, "Well, you are a girl. When you're 8 and you're 12 and you don't have anyone else that is in your space, when you don't have anyone else that lives in the same house as you to tell you you're okay, Where are you supposed to go? How are you supposed to garner your own self-validation if the people that are raising you don't validate who you are?
But the people that's raising you are going to go through the same thing you potentially going through. They're going to feel the same pain. They're going to feel the same disconnection. They're not going to understand 100%. I get what he's saying.
Right, and just like children may not be able to understand that everyone else in that household is going through the effects of them thinking that and believing that, how can they make a decision to transition?
Exactly.
If they are not,
if it's that disruptive,
right? If they can't comprehend that everybody else in the household is going through something because of that,
if they're not mature enough to take it in that once you make that announcement, that's a very high chance all hell's gonna break loose, and you can be fighting with receiving love from your family again. Yeah. If you're not mature enough. There's yo.
But I don't understand he was 8 and he realized that he wasn't a boy.
A boy. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Biology.
I don't know how that. I don't know. I'll have to hear the insight behind realizing that, because I think that's Buck with the glasses, the gentleman. He said that his parents dressed him, and he was like, "Yo, once I came across the what you call that, puberty level, I was like, whoa, my body doing things that I thought that it couldn't do, you know." So it's like,
as a father, you know, my duty is to raise my children the way I believe is right. And if my child somehow struggles with this, which is fine, we'll have that conversation. But I'm going to let it play out the way I believe it should be played out. And at 18 years old, you can do whatever you want to do. If you don't want to wear dresses, that's fine. I mean, just wearing it, if you want to dress like a boy, don't make you want to be a boy. Don't mean you have to be a boy. My mom was a tomboy, and my mom had me and my brother, and she's a woman, you know, and she lives like that. But, you know,
my sister grew up around boys. I have the only sisters, like it's me and all my brothers and my sister. And boy, she was tough.
And we have
and she was tough, you feel me?
Little girl.
And we have a little girl, and guess
boys.
what? She's growing up around boys, and she's tough. So it's like, just want to put that out there.
But she's tough in heels and a baseball hat around the house with a dress, the biggest flowy dress. So yeah.
I want to dress a little different. Maybe a boy want to do cheerleading or something like that. Right. But that don't mean you need to transition to something else. So I want that to play out until my child is old enough to make that decision on their own. Yeah. Also, you have to teach your children to have balance, because if you just want mommy and daddy to acquiesce to everything you want, that's not reality. Yeah. You have to understand that mom and dad may not see me this way. They love me.
That's what we just
I
said.
see myself this way, and I disagree with how they speak to me or how but I love them as well. I love, like my son, if he said that he was, and I'm a Christian and I don't believe in homosexuality, I don't. I respect anybody that feel that way. I never, protest you at all. If my son came to me, it would be a struggle for me to want to go to his wedding. I'm just going to be honest. But I think that my son should understand this is the way my dad feel. I love him. This is the way I feel. And we have mutual love. And that don't mean I hate you. That just mean we disagree. And I wish that same sentiment would be, and I think it's the same on this panel. Like, there's no hate in any of this. Right. I love every single person on this side, and we may think of things differently, but we love each other. It can't be one-sided.
I am lucky. I'm 41, and I'm a trans man. One of my greatest fears as a trans man is my life being taken from me because I'm a trans man. Transitioning in a black neighborhood with gang members as neighbors, they weren't having that. So the more that my body started to look a lot like theirs, I was challenged on a regular basis. I was beaten up because someone recognized me from prior to my transition and approached me and confronted me and called me a liar and told me I was a bitch. And I, out of safety, was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they cold cocked me, and I lost a front tooth.
I grew up with a positive father figure.
This is good.
The whole panel just about
I think for me it's surprising, because I would believe that a woman or a person who's born as a woman who now identifies as a man didn't have a positive role model as a man, and therefore they felt somewhat insecure as a woman, which makes them, feel a certain way and want to be a certain different person. Maybe they want to be the man that their father never was, or whatever the case may be. And so it was very interesting. I mean, being honest, it was interesting to see pretty much a majority of you guys come forward.
That's so great. I think that's really important that you say that, because I do think a lot of people probably feel that way about guys like me, right? That our fathers we didn't have the right upbringing or what. My father was amazing. I grew up really like a little boy. I always felt like a little boy. My parents actually raised me, and I'm 59 years old. So that was in the 60s and the 70s when we didn't even talk about this kind of stuff. But my parents actually felt it from me. So I think that that's a misconception that people think about people like us.
Any good father pushes their child to feel self-love and to feel like they can be who they want, do what they want, and have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? Like our founding fathers. And so it's fatherlessness, or having a missing dad, is a pandemic in its own, and it's one that obviously I'm sure Brandon can attest to. It's so critical to have a father in the house, because kids get lost when they don't have one, and having a father that's loving and strong and someone you can rely on is the reason why we're all comfortable with who we are.
I had several different father figures in my life. So it wasn't, I had a dad, but then I had my grandfather and I had my uncle. It takes a village to raise a child, right? But all of those different perspectives raised me as a well-rounded human. If we take the masculinity out of it, just as a human, I got to see different perspectives. And so now as a father that has given birth to a child, and that child being a male, right, I'm able to raise him with those same ideals that I'm able to identify because of the father figures that I had.
I didn't have my father growing up. He was not present in my life at all. So it showed me that some men can step up, like my grandfather and my stepfather, who have taken me in and showed me how to take care of myself, how to be, strong and dependable. And all I've been able to do is give more love to all people that I interact with.
Right.
So it was really important for me to have those figures.
I think this is a really important thing to show people that are watching this, because a lot of times I feel like we can blame any issues in society or anything that arises on the generation that came before us. So any issues that arise in our society, it's like, there's not always a reason why it's happening. We just need to address the issue and solve it.
I grew up with all women. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my mom. I had my aunts. So I was raised by women, but my dad was there sometimes, and then my stepdad took me in as his own. So I had my stepdad as a father figure.
I grew up with all women as well. My mom used to tell me I have to be your mom and your dad. So there'd be times where I got both. She was super sweet with me or really strict on me, and she taught me a lot as well. Growing up with women, it taught me a lot of vulnerability.
When you were talking to, I was like, I relate to you very well. But yeah.
I'm Jacob. I'm 27 years old, and I'm a trans man. So the relation with my dad and how unsupportive he is has been a challenge for me, but it's something that I've learned to grow past. And I encourage everyone that even if you don't have a parent who is supportive, to still be authentically yourself, because your life is meant to be lived for you. And I think that choosing my happiness above all else has made my life that much better, and I wouldn't change anything. Even though he wasn't supportive, I still wouldn't have him here.
Listening to all your guys' points, I would definitely say, yeah, I did have a father figure. He was in the Marines, and he has this very toxic masculinity mindset. A lot of anger built up that I can definitely tell he suppressed, in the Marines, because that's what he was taught to do. That's what the Marines are about. He always carried that with him, and I think that's what he tried to instill in me and my siblings at a very young age, which made it hard for me to be vulnerable with myself. And I just saw a lot of anger issues that were, very violent sometimes. And since coming out as trans, I feel like he's been more willing to understand me more and trying to figure out as a person. And because of that, I feel like our relationship has definitely got a lot stronger since then.
I can't imagine how difficult it is to come home and then try to be vulnerable after suppressing so much pain and hurt for years. So it's good to hear that, he's learning and kind of evolving and opening up. That's something where, you guys were talking about vulnerability, right? And it's like, there's times when it's good to be hard.
I don't show emotion as much as I'd like.
Being a veteran, he would see me being vulnerable at times, and he'd be like, well, don't you want to be a man? And that would make me feel like, oh, am I not supposed to be vulnerable anymore? Now that I'm, I'm going to transition. And it was just like very hard for me because, like I said earlier, it was hard for me to have that father figure at that time of my life.
You know, my process of, you know, digesting emotions is by myself, and I use that time to self-reflect. So if I'm feeling angry, or if I'm, you know, feeling really passionate about something, or whatever the emotion is, sometimes I pull back and I don't show that emotion because I'm reflecting on it and trying to understand why it's there. So I think a lot of times people can think men aren't showing enough emotion, but in reality they're just self-assessing why that emotion is there in order to see what it's trying to teach us.
Right. I think for my, when I was female, I was much more angry. I was just reactive, angry, like, "Grr." And then as I became a man, I cry more now as a man than I ever did as a woman. And I'm like, I think it's because I'm at peace with myself. And so before I was just so angry about being a woman and everyone calling me she and seeing a girl, and I just be, you know, as a fashion model. So that really just took it to a whole other level. And then once I became a man, it was like, whoa, I can actually relax. And I think I do the same thing. I self-reflect on myself. I want to be this type of man that is more vulnerable and that is more accessing my own emotions.
Thank you, everyone.
Right on. Thank you.
That was cool. That was cool.
Thank you.
Hold on. Let's talk about it. Showing emotion as a man. I think we talked about it earlier.
I think when it comes to showing emotion as a man, I think especially with masculinity playing a part of it, you know what I'm saying? That's a healthy way of doing it. You know, I feel like you have your people that you'll be around that you can be expressive to. That's not judgmental. It don't always have to be in tears. It don't always have to be in a passionate, aggressive way. But it's in a way that is just complementary to your personality, where people can tune in with you and understand why you making these comments, why you speaking on certain situations, and they can all align with you.
Yeah.
But then they have toxic emotion, where your masculinity can come off as, you know, overbearing, where you start to put other people in a suppressed environment because you may be dealing with something that you don't know how to express. So everyone else starts to feel your pain, you know, hurt people.
Right.
And then you also have loving emotion, where if you have a child, for instance, that's just crying. You don't want to scream at that child to tell them to stop crying. You don't want to whip the child to tell the child to stop crying.
Yeah.
There's a loving emotion that comes with masculinity that you can show the child, and you can just get to his level and slowly speak to him until he starts to come back to himself again, because he's dealing with something that he don't know how to even express yet. But he knows he's feeling it, and what he's going to do, embrace what he's feeling as a child, or she. And yeah, you just got to get down to their level and speak to them, and then slowly let them know the different ways that they can handle situations. I think what's wrong with people sometimes is they don't give enough options for people to deal with. And when they have options, then they can slowly start to adjust with what fits with their personality better. But when you don't have options, you self-destruct eventually. You know what I'm saying? So.
Right. And I feel like, why do other people want to see people's emotions, especially when it comes to men? And I say that because a perfect example, a recent tragedy of an influencer, and they want they want her significant other to grieve a certain way, so they're judging they're trying to measure his level of bereavement. You know, let people be.
They don't know what that person did in silence, behind closed doors, what shoulder he had at the time when he needed it. It wasn't your shoulder. It wasn't the world's shoulder. And the world wants people to lean on them.
Right.
And we been sitting back looking at y'all so judgmental, bro. Why the heck would y'all want people to keep coming to y'all when all y'all really have to do is tear us down, judge us for why we doing what we doing, and then make us look like that this is not our norm. When in reality, everyone have their own way of being, you know, emotional about certain situations. I think that's something that alone people need to tap into, bro. Like, and get to a real understanding on. Yeah.
Right. Emotions is not just tears.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's true, man.
Woo!
Or anger. Anger. Because sometimes people display anger because they scared to be exposed. They scared to expose their weakness to the world, bro. Like, they start to embrace anger more, because if they don't, then people gonna start to say, "Oh, you're weak in these areas.
Right.
Oh, you're not like that. Look at you." And that's when the world starts to judge them. But when you get in the right groups, the right people around you, the right people that actually love you, they will never judge you for those type of incidents. You be able to put down all the guards. She won't have that, how they say, masculine energy. she won't be so hard. She gonna be able to put down her guards because she have a man around that can love on her correctly and be there for her. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That way.
This was a topic.
I
Ooh,
think
child.
at the end of the day, I feel like we love on everybody, y'all.
Yeah.
Every person that come in our comment section, that come in our lives. Man, we had people not come in our lives that, well, a person that came in our life, and this individual was very open in front of our whole platform. And we gave that person kind words, loving words.
A real family.
A quick prayer. You feel me? And we was there for them like, yeah, that's how we move. I don't feel like we are in position to tell anybody how they should do things. That's things we don't agree with.
Right.
And if it don't ant pile over in our yard, then we won't have to be so forceful to try to make change. But when there's things that's going on, I'm not here to tell anybody how to shoot their arrow.
Right. We love everybody, no matter your culture, ethnicity, nationality, you know, as long as you're happy, and don't try to change our beliefs just because you are a certain way. We respect it, you know.
Yeah, you won't find a friend by trying to change somebody. You find a friend by being yourself, and people will start to attract to you that way.
Yeah, y'all have been requesting this particular topic for a long time, and we finally did it.
Yeah.
And it was a long video.
It was.
So we hope you guys appreciated this video. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you like to support the channel that way, as well as our reaction request form is in our description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.